Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. Today we are going to be making a card with my new favourite stamp set. So I've done a little bit of prep ahead of time. I have cut myself a card base, standard card base, half sheet of A4 scored at 10.5 centimetres in Berry Burst. And then I've got a pretty peacock layer that is half a centimetre smaller in both directions. Then I've got some white. This is half a sheet of basic white. We're not going to be using the whole half a sheet, but it will just make life a little bit easier. I've got two stamp sets that I'm going to be using today. The Flowers Fair from the upcoming March online exclusives, and the Fabulous Sayings stamp set that is the January product of the month, which if you place an £70 order, you can add this on for just £5. So I have already mounted my stamps, so I'm going to be using this large stamp, and then I'm going to be using the Happy Birthday from the Fabulous Sayings. And I have already mounted them both. I'm going to be using my brand new Stampin' Positioner today. So there is my base plate. And then I'm going to be using my basic white panel. I'm just going to pop that in on the magnets, and then my lovely Flowers Fair is already mounted. So I just need some ink. I'm going to be stamping in Memento today. And then I'm going to be doing some colouring with some blends. So let's get this stamp all nice and inked. Just make sure I've got a good amount of ink all the way across. And then I'm so sorry that you're getting that like stream of sunlight from the window over there. It's probably casting some very dodgy shadows. But there's not a lot I can do about it because I can't close the curtain because there isn't one. It's coming from the window that is like at the back of my desk. And that is the window that kind of gets the sunlight and is where the kind of natural light comes from in here. So I purposefully don't have a curtain because it lets the light in. So when I'm sitting at my desk, I'm not in the kind of pitch dark. And normally when I'm filming, I do most of my filming at night actually. It's normally dark, so I'm not normally fighting with the sun. I'm not inking this very well. I did see, I watched a video from the lovely Emma Goddard the other day, and she had her Memento ink in a normal Stampin' Up ink pad. So she'd bought a white ink pad. So our white pigment ink pads, it comes as like a dry pad with the refill. And she'd done that. She'd got a white pad, which is obviously just a blank ink pad, and then had inked it with her Memento refill, and I thought that was genius. And I have added I've added one to my order. No, it's that flower, isn't it? I need to pay more attention to it, where the spots where I'm missing ink. I'm too busy jabbering, not paying attention. So yeah, I thought that was a really, really good idea. And then you've got the like foam ink pad rather than the like linen ink pad of the Memento. There we go. And then while I'm here, I'm going to stamp my sentiment as well. So I'm just going to be using the happy birthday. So let's just ink that stamp. And then the cool thing with this is that I'm just going to turn it around so I can make sure that I line my paper up properly. But the really cool thing about this is that you can slide your paper underneath before you press it down to make sure that you're where you want to be. So I'm just going to chuck a couple of magnets on there just in case I don't get a good first impression. And then press that down. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that is our stamping done. We can move our Stampin' positioner out of the way. And then we are going to do some colouring. So I have got some blends. Let me just pop the lid back on that Memento before I put my hand in it. So for my colours, I have got light and dark Mango Melody, light and dark Peach Pie, light and dark Strawberry Slush, light and dark Old Olive, and light Grey Granite. And I'm going to do all of these little flowers I'm going to do in the Peach Pie, and then I'm going to do a bit of a mixture for some of the larger flowers between the Mango Melody and the Strawberry Slush. So I'm going to start how I always start, which is with the light colour. I like to use the bullet tip. It is personal preference. Some people really like the bullet tip, some people really like the brush tip. It's, yeah, personal preference, whatever you prefer. I really like the bullet tip. I feel like I have more control with the bullet tip. So I'm just going to colour a couple, and then I'm going to bring the dark in over the top. There's that, and then the dark. And then I'm just kind of going over the lines that are kind of already there from the stamp, and then also just kind of adding in a little bit of depth kind of around the centre. So nothing too complicated, they're quite small images. It's just kind of adding a little bit of detail and a little bit of depth. I'm just going to keep going. So this is definitely my new favourite stamp set, my favourite ever, I think. I love it. It lends itself beautifully to whatever kind of medium of colouring you like, whether that's blends or watercolour. And I love colouring with both blends and watercolour. In fact, I have an example that I can show you using this stamp with some watercolour pencils and one of our blender pens. Super simple way of watercolouring if you're not a watercolour painter, or if you perhaps don't have a huge amount of confidence when it comes to watercolouring. It's a really nice way of watercolouring, and it means that, you know, if you're taking it on the go or whatever, you don't need to take water with you because the blender pen does the job for you. It's like magic. So again, just going through with that dark Mango Melody, and there aren't any hard and fast rules, so you can kind of go wherever. Just, it's a bit of a kind of trust the process. These are quite small images, so I'm probably not going to go back over with the light, but if I was colouring a larger image, I would go back over the top with the light to kind of blend out that colour. But because we've just got some small images today, I'm not too worried about that. So nice, simple, quick colouring. Oh, still got a couple more to go. One and that one. That's done with. And then just adding in a little bit of depth of colour in the centre of those last couple, like so. And then for my middles of those, I'm just going to use the light Mango Melody and just colour in those dots in the centre. You could add extra detail if you wanted to, but that'll do for me. Then I'm going to grab my light old olive and I'm going to do my greenery next, I think. So just at the base of those flower heads and the stems and leaves, and I'm just going to colour everything that would be green in my light old olive, and then I will come back and add some more detail with the dark. So just straight over. You do not need to be kind of, I think people get a little bit scared with the blends and kind of think, oh well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's quite hard to do it like spectacularly wrong. Because they're alcohol markers, they're really forgiving. You can kind of go over the areas. You can build the colour with them, but I think you'd have to try quite hard to get like really streaky colouring, just by their nature, because they're alcohol ink. Just making my way across. You know, hopefully that you can see that it's, you know, not super complicated. Oh, missed one. To add colour with blends, and actually you can get a really good result without tons of effort, because the pens kind of do the work for you. And I'm not too worried if I go a tiny bit outside of the lines. It's fine, we're going for pretty not perfect. Nearly there. And to be honest, you could leave your green just like that, but I'm going to add a little bit of detail with my dark old olive, so I'm just going to follow kind of the lines of the stamp. So as you can tell, I'm not being like super duper precise about it, just kind of following the lines to just add a little bit of extra depth, and then just a little bit kind of in the just there underneath the flowers like that. There we go. Okay, so light mango melody, I'm going to just kind of decide which ones I'm going to do yellow. So I'm going to do this one yellow, and then this large one. I think it might be nearly time for a new set of Mango Melody pens. So that one, and then let's do this one. Low on ink, so it's a bit squeaky. Let's do this little one. And then this one, and then we'll do all of the others in Strawberry Slush. So just laying down that colour. Like that. And then, oops, wrong way up, in with the dark, and just following the lines of the stamp, adding some detail, kind of following around areas where there might be some shadow. But again, I'm not being too precise, I'm not worrying too much about anything, I'm just adding a little bit of extra depth and a little bit extra kind of right in the centre. There. Okay, now Strawberry Slush. So again, starting with the light, and then this one, and I'll come back over in a second with the dark to add in that extra detail. So I would love to know, are you a fan of colouring? Do you prefer like our two-step stamping where you use a stamp to fill in the colour rather than blends or watercolours? And if you are a fan of colouring, what is your favourite kind of medium? Are you a fan of the blends? Do you like to watercolour? Do you like using the watercolour pencils? Do you like using our ink pads like an ink palette? I absolutely love using our watercolour pencils, and I love blends colouring, but watercolour was my first love with crafting. So watercolour is always kind of top of my list of my preferred kind of techniques. Love a bit of watercolour. Right, we are nearly there with our colouring, and we're nearly at the point where I'm going to trim this panel down and then we start putting our card together. So although there's some colouring involved, and then obviously you're then watching me colour in, but there isn't a lot to do for this card as such, because the lovely stamp kind of does it all for you. It's doing all the work. We don't need designer series paper, we don't need tons of kind of extras. Because this beautiful stamp just does the work. It's doing the heavy lifting. We just have to colour it in, and then I say we have to colour it in, you don't have to colour it in. I really love the idea of like selecting one flower and just colouring in one and leaving the others blank. Let's just add a little bit of detail on that one. And on that one. There we go. Okay. Now there is one more step with the colouring, but I'm going to trim this panel down first. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer. And the first thing I'm going to do is trim off our happy birthday. So just lining it up, so making sure that I'm not cutting off any of that stamped image in the track. We'll trim that down in a minute. So our panel for the front of our card is going to be 9 centimetres by 13.35. So I'm going to trim a tiny bit of that white off the top, like that, and then I'm going to rotate and I'm going to trim off the bottom, so 13.35, and then we're going down to 9 centimetres. So to start with, I'm just going to trim that edge, and then we'll rotate and see where 9 centimetres takes me to. No, I want a bit more of that side. Let's trim that bit, and then yeah, I want 9. Just trim that. Perfect. Okay, so this is going to go on our piece of Pretty Peacock that is then going to go onto our Berry Burst, and then our Happy Birthday I want to trim down to 10 centimetres. Like so, because that is then the same width as the Pretty Peacock panel, and then we can start putting our card together. What I haven't done actually is cut a layer for the inside, but I'll do that after. So popping our panel onto our Pretty Peacock layer, and I've used the liquid glue to give me a little bit of wiggle room, like so. And then our Happy Birthday, I'm going to pop up on some dimensionals, which I have got here. One, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 1 in the middle because we don't want a saggy middle. Just pick the backs off and then decide kind of whereabouts I want it. I might go quite low down actually. There we go. And then that on with some more liquid glue onto our card base. Like that. And then I'm thinking maybe a bow. Do I want a bow? Let's tie a bow and see. Good old bunny ears bow. Just adjust it until it's the size that I want. I think I might pop the bow on like it's tied around one of the flowers. So let's just roll up my glue dot and then pop that on the back of my bow, and then I'm going to pop it under that one, and then I can use my scissors to, whoops, missed, to trim off those ends. Like so. Oh, I forgot. There was another bit of colouring to do and I carried on and got stuck in. Okay, so we're going to pretend that the bow isn't there. We're going to pretend that I haven't already stuck this card together, and we're going to add some detail with our light grey granite. Now we're going to imagine that our sun is coming from this way. It's coming in from the left. So this is very much a trust the process. It was an idea that came from Yolanda yesterday. We had a team night together and she had added some grey detail to form kind of like the shadow along the outside, and it is very much a trust the process because it looks a bit weird and then you trust the process and it is totally worth it. And it's not something that I had ever thought of doing, but it looks so effective. So I'm just kind of carefully adding around the bits that I've already stuck on. I'm just going to pretend that I did it before I stuck them on. And it's just remembering where my light is coming from so that I'm only adding it on that one side. And do it a little bit underneath as well so that it looks like I didn't forget. There we go. Now you could add some bling if you want to. I think just the bow is enough. I did say that I would show you this stamp watercoloured. So this is the card that I made, and I coloured with the watercolour pencils and blended them out with the blender pen. I love it. And then I went back in and added some extra detail after it was dry with the garden green to just add a bit more depth. But similar idea, but different. I went for the other way around. I think I actually prefer it with the Pretty Peacock base. But I do like that you get a bit more of the Pretty Peacock with this one, so I think I would probably do Pretty Peacock base but then shrink down my other 2 layers so you get that wider border and then the narrow border rather than a narrow and then a wide. But let me know what you think. Which do you prefer? I love them both because they feature my new favourite stamp set that I'm going to be using all the time. So yeah, that's it for today. So a card with my new favourite. If you've enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you would give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know are you a colourer, are you not a colourer, what sort of colouring do you prefer. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd consider subscribing to my channel, ring the bell so that you get notified when I post new videos. There will always be a video on a Tuesday because Tuesday is Tuesday Technique Day. So every Tuesday I post a video showing you a technique. Yeah, and feel free to head on over and follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well. I would love to have you. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Bye.